And we're back. Some of you by now may consider this the misery index, but it is not. This is gold. It's pure gold, trust me. So let's have fun with it. So we were talking about the project manager's role. And one of your key roles is to perform integration. So if you look on page 25 of the PMBOK guide, you see on the top left the knowledge area called integration management. That's you. It's what you do. And you use the processes across the horizontal of that to manage all of the processes. Right? So integration takes place at three levels. The process level, and you're using integrated change control to make changes to the processes and the outputs and the other things. There's the cognitive level, which is having some proficiency in all the knowledge areas, though not an expert. And the context level, that you understand the virtual team, the cultural aspects, what you're trying to deliver, and how you communicate it. And so at the process, cognitive, and context level, you are integrating the project to take an enterprise view, a big picture view, as well as your focused deliverable view. It's there's complexity in both behavior. There's risk involved, and we have to be aware of that. Now, as the project manager, I did want to break into some examples of key terms like stakeholders. Notice that I've highlighted the PMBOK guide's term for stakeholder. Listen to this. An individual, a group, an organization who may be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, an activity, or an outcome of a project. That's too much for me. No, it's good stuff. It really is good stuff. And I don't mean to make noises, but I prefer my definition. It's just anyone affected by a project. So I at times will use shorthand. Just know, I think it captures the essence of the definition, and I'll try to make that clear along the way. Right? A stakeholder is anyone. That's an individual, group, organization that's affected by my project. I get it. A key stakeholder I define as a decision maker. Remember, your sponsor is a special person who is actually paying for the project. So they have a special role. And they will perform some project activities like signing off your charter or your project plan, though you are responsible for it. You also have some customers, like a functional manager could be a customer. You have team roles, right? And the functional manager is a customer because they own the expertise. So your sponsor owns the budget. Your functional manager owns the expertise. And that's why if it's a functional organization that your project is working in, the functional manager not only has the expertise, but they also have the budget, right? Which gives them that power along that spectrum. Now, also in team roles, there are the project manager yourself. You are ultimately responsible. You can't shirk that. Your name should be in the charter. If you're a project coordinator, remember you have some authority that was in a matrix organization or a project expediter. This is the weakest. It has no formal power. Those should be known for the exam. They also have team members have roles, right? They're doing most of the work. You spend most of your time communicating. And there is a special set of team roles called the project management team. Now, these are special people with key roles in your project. I would take people with a PMP certification and give them special roles and call them my project management team. Even though they're team members, they have a special ranking there. So lessons learned. We are always capturing lessons learned, right? Always collecting them from the very beginning and sharing them, doing knowledge sharing. And of course, it's a formal part of the process, closing process. We want to be aware of regulations, which are official or law. First is a standard. The PMBOK guide is a standard. It's not mandatory. It's a framework we've talked about. Be aware that objectives like risks and other things, quality, they're stated in the charter at a high level. They are done in detail in the project plan. And objectives like scope drive your reason for quality. We've already talked the baselines. There are 3 individual baselines: schedule, cost, and scope. And collectively, they are termed the performance measurement baseline. And your role is to manage them and to make trade-offs. If the schedule changes, it will impact cost and scope. If the scope changes, it will impact cost and schedule. If the cost or budget changes, it will impact schedule and scope, right? And you're making those trade-offs along the way. Be aware of the project SOW. This is one of the inputs along with business documents into developing the project charter, your very first process in integration management to kick off the project. And it's going to show a statement of work is going to show the needs, the scope, and how it fits in. Now, constraints, by definition, limit your options, right? So once I'm done with a management plan and it's formalized and integrated, it now becomes a constraint on the other management plans. Once the budget is done, the budget will constrain scope, schedule, quality, how many quality engineers I can hire, etc., right? How much I can do in procurements. They become constraints on each other. And then there's assumptions. Assumptions, we've said, were real and true without proof. So frankly, that's a risk to me, and I would add it to the risk register, okay, which we'll talk about later. So this is what you're doing. All of this knowledge, all of the PM power, all of your understanding of the influences on a project, including organizational influences, which we summarized by CLIP, OPAs, and EEFs. All of these are being brought to bear to manage these 5 process groups and the processes within them. You are the Brown. Those are your integration processes to make this work. And there are some other key definitions for you just to go over, to review at this point. Some are old, some are new. Business case, benefits management plan are old. Issues log, I think we've talked about. Assumptions log. Actually, what I want to point out is the assumptions log also includes assumptions and constraints, are all on a document called the assumptions log. Whenever I do integrated change control, I want to keep a change log, a list of changes, both submitted, denied, and approved, etc., and the documents that went with them. The project charter is high level, and it's initiated by the sponsor, and you are going to work on it, and the sponsor is going to sign it. It's high level. So, for example, if they say, Andy, I need you to build a bridge between San Francisco and the body of land on the other side, it needs to be 8 lanes wide. It needs to have a pedestrian also walkway on each side. It needs to have a bike lane on each side. It needs to include a motorcycle lane in between the 4 lanes on each side. It needs to hold, 290 million tons of weight at a single time, right? Regardless of how many cars or trucks. That's very high level. I will have to detail those out. Those are the requirements I would put in a project charter, and I will detail them out in my project plan. And so you can see, compared to the slide I showed earlier, which was from 2020, this is the current slide of how these process groups interact. They're very similar. I like the other one better, but you can see I am monitoring and controlling my project here all the way back, even in initiating, that they appear as verticals on page 25 of the PMBOK guide, but really all of this stuff is happening at the same time. We're going to talk about it sequentially or chronologically because it's easier to talk about and there's some other value, but just know that these process groups are all happening like this together. Okay, that was fun. Let's take a break.